Mr. Achin Khanna, Managing Partner, Strategic Advisory, 𝗙𝗲cie as the moderator. Achin heads 𝗙𝗲cie's Strategic Advisory practice. His experience in consulting field ranges from feasibility analysis to strategic consulting across the globe. Gaining valuable experience across professional roles in the hospitality industry has made him a highly sought-after industry expert. Joining him on stage are Mr. 𝗙𝗵𝗵 Group CEO, Minor International, Mr. John Flood, Chief Executive Officer, 𝗙𝗵𝗵 International, and Mr. Rajiv Menon, President, Asia Pacific, excluding China, Marriott International.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time. Let's get right into it, shall we? Please, Kevin, the topic today is the view from the corner office. So on a lighter note, I thought we'd begin by asking these gentlemen that exact question. Raj, do you have a corner office? And if so, what's the view?
I have natural light coming through, but it's not a corner office by any means.
I have a corner office, I'm never there. I do have a corner office.
What's the view?
The view is fantastic. It's just overlooking the river.
And John,
I have a corner office now, but I've only got it the last 4 months. Before that, for 10 years, actually, I didn't have an office. This is the first office I have. But even as an office, I've got like basically one of these and a sofa like that. So if people come in, I'll sit in I'll be on the sofa. It'll be like the 𝗙𝗵𝗵 show, you know, sitting down talking to people. They'll be telling me their problems. That's kind of the way it rolls, you know. That's the way it's set up. But there's no desk or anything like that actually as such where I work, sign stuff. It's just not like that.
I was just curious because I know we've used this terminology type of it. I'm wondering if everybody actually does have an office and we use that traditional sense. But thank you. Let's get serious, I guess. 60 seconds, if I may begin. For those in the audience who may not know of you. John, let's begin with you. Take a minute, a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about your organization.
My name is John Flood. I'm Irish. Working with 𝗙𝗵𝗵 about 20 plus years. We're an Indonesian company based in Jakarta. We have 11 brands. We do hotel management. We build our own hotels, and we also do software. We have a software company for property management systems, employee management systems, payroll systems, asset management systems, and so forth. We also provide services for other hotels that we don't manage through 𝗙𝗵𝗵 or 𝗙𝗵𝗵 service where we provide the booking engine, channel manager, rate shopping tools. We do the negotiations with the OTAs, build people's websites and stuff like that. So at the moment we have about 160 hotels under management in Indonesia. We also do in the Middle East and the Caribbean. We operate in Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. And then for the 𝗙𝗵𝗵 service, we operate in Europe, in Africa, Caribbean, the Middle East. We do vacation rental platforms in Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So altogether we have about 300 plus hotels in the portfolio, about 45,000 keys. So that's pretty much we're privately owned. There's 2 partners, myself and my partner Charles Brookfield. And that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is 𝗙𝗵𝗵 CEO for Minor International. The company has 3 verticals. Basically, we have hotels, food, and lifestyle. And the company is called Minor because we were founded. Our founder, when he founded the company, he was a miner, and hence the name Minor was given to us. It's a good thing because even with the global crisis, which is, they call it the Black Monday, the Black Tuesday, and everything else, we cannot get downgraded anymore because we're minor anyway. So I think, and from the hotel side, we've got about 560 hotels hotels now across 60 countries, predominantly in Europe, Middle East, Africa, Australia, Asia, China is also coming up now, and well, most part of the global sector, because we have 8 brands, so we don't have that many brands, but we have 8 brands which we focus on. Anantara being our top-end luxury hotel brand, and then we have Avani, we have 𝗙𝗵𝐺 Collection, which is a brand we acquired in Europe. We have 𝗙𝗵𝐺 also, which is another brand we acquired in Portugal, and then we have 𝗏𝐽𝑘𝐻, which is also a brand we acquired in Australia. The company is listed, it's a public listed company. On the food side, of course, we do a lot of QSR, quick service restaurants, including casual dining. But on the hotel side, the main focus is hotels, food and beverage, health and wellness, timeshare, residential, plaza, or what we call shopping malls. So that's the vertical which sits within the hotel umbrella, and that's pretty much it from us.
Thank you. Raj, finally.
Raj Menon, I represent Marriott International, which I'm sure most of you know is the largest hotel company with over 9,000 hotels in 141 countries. A lifelong hotelier, have been with the company for over 23 years now, and really been running Asia Pacific, excluding China, for the last 5 years as president. Once we acquired 𝗙𝗏cie, that was probably in recent history the game changer for us, more so in Asia, because 𝗙𝗏cie happened to be bigger in Asia than Marriott at that point in time. And when we came together in Asia, ex-China, we had just over 260 hotels. That was at the end of 2016. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to open our 600th hotel in Asia Pacific ex-China, with a pipeline of another 380 odd hotels right behind that. So we should be hitting 1,000 hotels by 2028, just in Asia, ex-China. And to me, this region represents incredible opportunity over the next few decades, and something I'm very, very proud of in terms of not just on behalf of Marriott, but from a broader industry perspective. Thank you.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. We'll now get into this with the very first question being something that I'd say I get asked as a hotel consultant by a lot of owners. This is a hotel investment conference. I think there's a significant amount of hotel owners and investors here. So I want to pose this specific question to each of you individually, and tell me what your views, please. I'll read it out. Hotels cost a lot of money to build. They take more than a few years to gestate and stabilize. They do not offer fixed income, rental, or annuities of any nature. They're not the easiest to sell or integrate. They are easily impacted by socio-geopolitical influences. Why would someone in their right mind invest in this business? John, I'll start.
Well, I think I give a definitely different answer than someone like Marriott, but we've actually built 3 of our own hotels here in Indonesia over the last couple of years, and the last one we built was a 150-room, 4-star conference center in West Java, 𝗙𝗵𝗵 province, which is about 90 kilometers from Jakarta. That has about 2,500 square meters of nice function space. So that's geared towards the government here. But for us, I mean, the investment on that was about, just if you want some numbers on it, cost about 150 billion, and the land we got fairly cheap was about 20 billion. So the payback on that we expect to be about 6.5 years, which for us is quite good. And for us, one of the reasons for building it ourselves is obviously the investment, but also it acts for us, it acts as a showcase for the brands, it acts as a training center for our company, for moving people around, housekeepers or front office people or general managers and so forth. So there's a few different reasons for us to do it, in our particular case. I think overall for investors, most of the investors we deal with, especially like if it's 2 and 3 star, it could be like the main investment that they have, so they'll spend most of the money they have on it. Usually when you get into like 4 star, 5 star, then it's bigger business people, bigger companies, they have more assets, more different types of businesses that are into it. So they're actually easier to deal with than they would be in the 2 and the 3 star, for example. Yeah, I was talking to this point earlier on today with Raj, that a lot of the time we spend could be spent taken up with the 2 star developers rather than the 5 star developers. It's a much different kind of thing, but all of those owners are looking for different things. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons for it, but in our case, a lot of the time we'll be asking them, what is the purpose for doing it? And for us, if people are into it for kind of the prestige and glamour, it's a trophy kind of hotel, that's not really us. We're kind of into more like bread and butter, into the mid-range type hotels that need to make some money. And even if an owner comes to us in the beginning and he says, oh, don't worry about the cost, it's this, it's that, it's like later on, as soon as the hotel opens, they're going to be worried about the cost, so you have to take it all with a pinch of salt. But I mean, for us, there's various reasons for our group. That was the reason we developed. But there's many interests. I think it's a good investment overall for people if they have a mixed portfolio, if they have some fund hotels, some offices, some real estate, some hotels. But most of the companies we deal with on the bigger side are mostly into real estate. So different countries have different things. They're on different life cycle of where they're at.
The one thing I take away from that, you said a few different ones, but the one main one that I take away is mitigation. And it's a mitigation strategy for these investments.
Right. Sure. Once they're an ongoing concern, once they're up and running, the licenses have been done, everything's processed, stuff like that. I think they're a good investment then. I mean, I think you can get, you don't see a lot of sales in Asia because a lot of them are kind of privately owned. I think in Europe, more of them are owned by, conglomerates or groups or financial investments and stuff like that. So you see, they're not so personalized. In Asia in general, I think people are more personalized when it comes to developing hotels.
Dilip, we will ask you this question.
Yeah, I think on our side, we actually, because our food group, we churn a lot of cash because it's quick service restaurant, it's casual dining and everything else. And what we do is, as being a public listed company, we never started as a hotel. So when we started initially, we went into the business by default because someone wanted to buy a hotel, they didn't have the money, so actually our founder funded it, and then they couldn't pay it back, so he ended up running a hotel. So we went into the hotel business by default. But then sooner or later, we initially started as an asset manager on the hotel side. Pretty much we do have third-party brands which we own, managed by third party. We have St. Regis, 𝗙𝗏 Marriott, the Four Seasons in Thailand, 3 Four Seasons, and also Radisson in Mozambique. And then slowly, because all our investment thesis is based on what we call return on equity or return on capital employed. We don't look at return on ego because we're a public listed company, as I said. So it's all driven by earnings. And basically, when we look at hotel projects, we look at it from a payback perspective, from a return on equity perspective as well, as to see where we can deploy our capital, where we will have the maximum return. And therefore, our mindset has changed us a lot because instead of being a pure management company, we became an asset company. Today we own about 65% of our hotels are owned and managed and leased by us. So we are pretty much an owner, an operator, and also a management company as well. So we wear 3 hats, which actually helps a lot because we do have a owner mindset instead of just having a pure management company mindset, which makes it very, very different when you actually deal with owners and all, because you can easily understand the owners, you can relate to them, and you understand the pain points as well as to what the owners are going through, because we go through the same thing. But in most of the cases, when we invest, the driving criteria is always a payback, and it's always the return on capital employed. say. And most of the deals we've done, I think over the years, I don't know, I started with the company 17 years ago. We had 12 hotels, and today we have about 560. And every single deal we've done has predominantly been very accretive to shareholder value, and that's important for us. For example, like we acquired the 𝗙𝗵𝐵 portfolio in Portugal at that time in 2016 for 300 million euros. We spent about 50 million. And today, we've recycled some of the assets, and we've got a net gain of about 1.2 billion euros. And that's the return we've got. And we still keep the assets because we still did a sale and lease back on the assets as well. So then it becomes quite accretive, and also it becomes cash generative as well, so that we take that cash and we start to deploy in other places. And hence we were able to also acquire the hotel company, which is NH Hotels in Spain in 2018, just before COVID, which was seen as the best deal ever. We acquired it at 10 times multiple, and then during COVID it plummeted. But then now it's come back really strong. Like this year, we get to about 9 times or 8 times multiple. So for us, I think the capital employed becomes quite important. So we think like an investor, but we're quite brand agnostic as well. So whatever the brand gives us the best value, we will choose. And basically, by default, like today, we own and manage some of our own brands as well, which we are now expanding, and our key focus is mainly investing in our own equity brands rather than other third-party brands. So that's the focus moving forward.
Thank you. Raj, I guess the same question, I'll just add the thought too. Unlike John and Dilip, Marriott doesn't really look at investing, and you have a clear asset-light strategy. And I know you deal with a wealth of owners, all from HNIs and UHNIs to institutional capital and REITs and whatnot. How do you answer this question that I've raised when these owners ask you this?
So to be honest, your question was more relevant pre-COVID than to some extent today. Because the amount of money that's chasing our industry right now is insane. RevPAR levels are up more than 40% in most of the markets across Asia Pacific. The growth we are seeing and the money that's coming in from private equity players, as much as individual wealthy families, is phenomenal. And it's clear that pretty much anybody who's in the business of real estate today wants to be in the business of hotels. And in some cases, as the primary investor in hotel business, or part of the diversification strategy. And third, a great brand gives you incredible halo for all your other real estate deployment. So we are hearing more and more from our partners about the aggressive growth strategy they're following in building more hotels, not just because they see demand for tourism and genuine business, but they also see a real opportunity for an industry that will deliver stronger returns in comparison to some of the other real estate players.
Couldn't agree more, and give it, in fact, perfect segue into the next question, and I'll start with you this time, Raj. The question I was going to ask was, how do you see the investment climate? You kind of answered that already. The additional point here is, are there particular markets or regions you're finding to be more attractive, or is it pretty much across the board?
So interestingly, I look after 22 countries going to 25 with new hotels being built in some of these new markets. But if you'd asked me the same question 5-6 years ago, I would have said it really is the India-China story, and with few markets in Southeast Asia kind of growing sporadically. Today, it is across Asia Pacific. When you think about each of the markets, be it South Asia, which is predominantly led by India, the growth story is just incredible. In Southeast Asia, Indonesia, for example, we used to operate maybe 20 hotels, just as 𝗙𝗏cie and us came together. Today we have 75 open. We'll open another 2 or 3 this year and have a pipeline of another 35. Malaysia, next month we are opening our 50th hotel. Thailand, last year we opened our 50th hotel. And the pipeline across the board, when I talk about 390 hotels in the pipeline, they are spread across Asia Pacific. Japan, which is back in 2012, Marriott operated 12 hotels. In November this year, we'll open 100 operating hotel in Japan, and Japan is a market that's roaring in terms of global tourism. With yen being so low, investment coming in, there is a lot of money chasing deals. So from my perspective, when you think about where Asia Pacific is headed, what are the fundamentals that are driving this? 60% of the world's population lives in Asia Pacific. 2.6 billion people ex-China. For many years, we've talked about the middle class. But it really is in the last few years, and coming out of COVID now, that we are seeing the dividends starting to pay off. Middle class is growing and is on the move. They're aspirational. They want to spend the money. They want to experience, better lodging lifestyle, and they are spending the money. And as a result, when you think about just last year for us, in our hotels, 61% of the business came from either within the country or within the region. That is very powerful when you think about traditionally, tourism was led by US and Europe. Today, and you look at the forecast for the next at least few decades, it's Asia that's going to lead travel and tourism. So I genuinely believe the growth opportunities in these markets are not just coming out of thin air, it's the people that are in these markets acquiring wealth, starting to move. They are the ones who are going to be our primary customers as we continue to grow.
Thank you, 𝗙𝗏. The same question, perhaps thought of a little differently. Are there? I agree fully. There are most markets across Asia Pac today that are offering great promise. Are there some that you would advise the investor community here not to look at necessarily? Are there some markets that are not exciting you, or are you equally excited about everything?
I think, post-COVID, we saw the investor sentiment soften, as we saw with all the big private equity players, right? And today, I think, even though what's happening today, the investor sentiment is a little bit more bullish. We have seen it in the different verticals as well. Like, for example, a hotel with branded residences, a resi component with timeshare or with wellness and all those. And we've seen how the travel patterns have changed as well over post-COVID. So therefore, that has created that demand drive of course, in few places, because like maybe 3-4 years ago, we always, put our bets on China to say China is going to be the biggest traveler in terms of tourism, and which did happen, and China was quite a big market for us. But like based on what's happened post-COVID, the markets has softened, and of course now India has taken over, and it's becoming quite big. But for us, like if I look at across the globe, like I see Europe is being still strong. The demand is very strong. For us, we saw Europe in the first 3 quarters coming really strong. And the other place we also see the bright spots, apart from, of course, in our doorstep we have India and China, and the other places is Africa. So again, Africa also we see as a strong driver as well. Yes, the risk is there, but the returns are also high. So the risk-return premium you would get is much higher than what you would get in other places. But I think both southern and the northern Europe, we see it coming coming quite strong, including South America or the Americas as well. Because again, we see a big influx of people actually traveling to these countries or from those countries.
John, really quick, maybe if you had something to add, I'll give you a quick thought that I read a paper recently about Vietnam battling some challenges, for instance. But that aside, I think most other Southeast Asian markets at least continue to offer promising results.
Yeah, I think, from what we've seen, all the Southeast Asian markets having come back very strongly, even though China hasn't really started traveling yet to any big extent, apart from Thailand. One of the things obviously that happened in Thailand was the free visas, which helped them get a lot of the business that was coming out of China. So they basically vacuumed up a lot of the Chinese numbers coming out. For Indonesia, for example, we see, it would be great for all countries just to get rid of all the visas, but you see the problems that they could have in Indonesia. You see it around Bali with, a lot of Russian or Ukrainians coming in due to the conflict, or even after COVID, where they come in on a tourist visa and they just stay here, they set up shop, no license, no permits, no right to stay, Russian signs. They don't really care, so I think unfortunately stuff like that is going to stop the Indonesian government going down the no visa route. So it'll be a little bit difficult for them, even though, obviously it's going to be huge, make a huge difference. Maybe that would tip them a little bit more towards allowing direct flights to a lot more of the parts of the country where they want to have, they want to create the next 10 Balis, for example, like 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝐻, for example, having direct flights from Singapore, Dubai, whatever, going in there. At the moment, it's still kind of flying into Jakarta or Bali, and then after that, getting a domestic flight. Whereas, a lot of foreign tourists don't feel comfortable yet flying on, if it's not Garuda, maybe Garuda, but 𝐼𝐴𝑟 or 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝐻 Air, for example. They don't feel comfortable doing domestic flights on that. So I think if the Indonesian government could open up a little bit more, and other countries as well, with more direct flights and going into the different locations apart from their already established tourism locations, then I think you see a lot more growth in many more different areas. Yeah.
Just to add what John said, when you think about Indonesia, we just released our second quarter results. Indonesia RevPAR second quarter grew 21% for us over last year. Last year was very strong double-digit numbers, right? So you think if the government opens up, to President 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝐻's vision of 10 Balis, few more international airports, I think the potential for this growth is incredible, because you have a very strong domestic traveler who's now really starting to move. Asia Pacific, as I talked about earlier, is on the move, and Indonesia is one country that's loved by Europeans as much as folks coming in from the US now as well.
Okay, we'll shift gears. Raj, you spoke a little bit about the demographic dividend that is Asia. You spoke about all guns blazing, and there's a lot of positivity across most markets in terms of opportunity. I'd like you gentlemen to maybe give me a few quantifiable, real-world challenges that the industry is yet to solve for or is contending with, and how are you individually addressing them?
Listen, while the world looks very rosy from the travel and tourism point of view, we also know that the world is on a precipice to some degree with what's going on in Southern Europe and obviously in the Middle East. We've got a situation in Bangladesh that we're dealing with right now, where we have a few Marriott hotels. I have 3 hotels in New Caledonia, which are pretty much shut at this point in time because of riots. So the industry is sensitive to all of those challenges that we have to continue to deal with. There has been major FX impact this year because of the US dollar being pretty strong. So those are challenges that we've dealt with as leaders in business pretty much every other day. And I think that's part and parcel of what we have to deal with. But ultimately, when you think about where our industry is at, and at Marriott, we look at 210 million members. Just this year alone, we've signed, I think, about 18 million members in the first 6 months. And we initiated 2 research papers this year in Asia. One was on luxury travel, and one was the millennial travelers. And in both cases, their desire to travel and pay extra for experiences is very, very strong. So broadly, from my perspective, the industry is in a good place.
Dilip and John, Dilip first, I guess. Real world challenges, actual problems that you think the industry is solved for?
I think for us, the biggest challenge is because the industry is growing so fast, and of course the pipeline is also growing very fast. And to find the talent or what we call the high performance has been very, very difficult because there's not enough coming through the funnel, and that's been the biggest challenge for us. And the next one I would say is sustainability. I think as hoteliers today, our response is, we are quite responsible, and therefore to ensure that we are accredited by Dow Jones, we are accredited by 𝗙𝗵 𝗵𝗲, but to maintain those standards and to deliver on those goals also is a challenge. We talk about being carbon neutral by 2050, but again, meeting those goals in terms of wastage, in terms of energy consumption, water, everything. So I think those are, I would say, the 2 biggest issues we are facing. Because I think, to a certain extent, we operate in countries like Argentina, the inflation is so high, and then people talk about 8-9% inflation. Say, don't worry about it, because we operate in much tougher destinations, which we can control. We operate in countries where the interest rates, last year, if you look at Sri Lanka, the country was almost bankrupt. The interest rates rose high, the inflation was so high, the country was pretty much, they didn't have loans. So those things, the things which we can control, we will control. But the things you can't control, you have to find a way to do it. But I think our 2 biggest challenges are this.
John, Dilip spoke about interest rates and inflation, and Raj mentioned FX movements and currency hedges and so forth. We've spoken about sustainability, we've spoken about the human challenge, and then the socio-economic challenges. All questions, by the way, gentlemen, that the owner is asking us at the beginning of why he should invest in the business. Anything else that you think bothers you?
Well, I think many of the problems have been raised, but also therein lies a lot of the opportunities. More automation. I mean, starting from the beginning, obviously there's not enough pilots around to be flying all these planes. So people are going to have to get used to, flying without a pilot in a supersonic plane in 10 years' time, which might be a slight step forward, But, pilots will be the first thing. Then on the ground, obviously, there's just not enough people around to be going into the hotel business. One, there's so many more opportunities for young people to do today, whether it's, they're into fintech, they're into gaming, they're into programming. There's a lot more stuff, than when we all started off in the hotel business many years ago. It was like, it was a good thing. It doesn't really have the prestige that it used to have anymore. A lot of the kids coming out of the colleges now, they want to go straight into a managerial position or become, assistant manager and so forth. Not many people want to do a 4-year education now as a waiter and then afterwards become a waiter in a hotel. It's like, what? There's a kind of a disconnect there, if you like, big disconnect. It wasn't like that 30 years ago or 35 years ago when I started in the business 40 years ago. Every conference that goes by, the numbers seem to get bigger and bigger, but you know what I mean? So the chance for groups like us, for example, though, is an opportunity that there's less people. For example, I think one of the first positions almost in hotels that disappeared because of COVID was the e-commerce staff or yield management staff. It was difficult enough before COVID to find these people, but after COVID, a lot of these people who are quite bright, the brighter people in hotels, if you like, other industries. So it's not as easy now to find e-commerce staff, yield management staff in hotels, almost impossible. Or if you do, you know, basically they end up being clustering. They're doing 5 hotels, 10 hotels. I mean, it's very difficult to find these people just for one hotel. So the opportunity for us, for software companies, for developers, lies in automating a lot of these processes, like so they actually work. You know, I mean, everybody has, oh, I have a yield management system, but you know, do they really? I mean, you know, especially in Islamic countries where 𝗙𝗿𝗏cie, for example, Ramadan changes every year, so everything changes every year. A lot of the stuff changes, the seasons are changing now, but I mean, that puts a real, you know, spanner in the works when you're trying to calculate yielding for a whole year, because the years aren't the same, you know, it just doesn't work like that. So the, you know, the opportunity for us is in, or for many companies, is in automating more of the processes in hotels, more of the processes for bookings, more of the processes for travel. So that's the kind of direction that we're going in. Later on, you know, other issues for food and beverage staff can be solved later on with more centralized kitchens. But again, there's an opportunity for people to develop centralized kitchens and be providing that kind of stuff for hotels. Because we're going to end up in a situation where Europe is now, where you know there's one chef doing breakfast for 200 people. If you say that to a chef in Indonesia or Vietnam or Cambodia, they're going to go, what? You know, but I mean, that's actually what happens. There is one chef making breakfast for 200 people at the Radisson in Copenhagen or wherever it is, you know. That's the future, you know. Singapore in Asia is probably the first country to have to deal with this, lack of staff or, you know, lower numbers working in a hotel, you know. But in the future, everybody's going to have to get used to it and start planning for it.
I'm going to pick up on that, and we have 9 minutes left. I want to quickly jam in a few things. So I'm going to mix 2 or 3 things together. The one point John made, Raj, about how efficiencies need to be had. And you tie that in with the human talent touch that both John and Philip spoke as well. And then I see an audience question here which says, is there a new trend that you see as the potential to becoming a disruptor in the hospitality sector? If you have to tie those 2 or 3 thoughts, do you have something that comes to mind?
Yeah, productivity, you know, to some extent, what dark times do is make you relook at your business model, right? And I think COVID taught us that. Most of us took a good hard look at our business model. We readapted. The only problem now is as businesses come back strong, those old habits are creeping in, right? To me, one of the things we've been looking at is where do our productivity levels sit in comparison with where we were in 2019, right? Because we have learned a few things, be it more, you know, casual labor versus more permanent. How do you learn to adjust to the business demand more effectively in Asia? Because traditionally, I can tell you, it's just so many people, irrespective of breakfast, lunch, or dinner in terms of shifts. And the other thing that is starting to now creep into our industry, will be a disruptor in a matter of months, if not years, is this whole artificial intelligence. We as a company are starting to use it on the back end to service customers in our customer engagement centers. A simple example where it would take our agents selling to a customer who has very specific demands of looking for a resort in a particular location, 5, 8, 10 minutes to really drill down everything they had to tell about the resort. Today, with literally 30 seconds, they are able to focus more on the sale than on kind of pulling the information using the AI tools that we have. And I do believe a lot of this will come into mainstream and help improve productivity dramatically in our industry. And I think the back end of the hotels will get simplified more and more, as much as we should and will focus on the front end to really service the needs of the customer.
Right. One of the things, Raj, that we notice also frequently is that a large part of the industry today continues to be in denial of the impact of artificial intelligence going forward on every industry and every part of life. And the sooner we start to embrace that, we're absolutely right. We're off here. And a related point, gentlemen, if I can ask you to comment on, is Raj spoke briefly about a survey they did with millennials, and then there's the Gen Z. And both in the workforce as well as guests, these are generations that have a very different outlook and a very different need that they're expressing from their hotels. Are you seeing some of that? Because that's the travelers of tomorrow, or even today for them.
Yeah, I think from our side, yes, for sure, because I think the days of the guests wanting sunset and sound experiences, they especially with the millennials, or the Gen Z, you know, they're looking for more experiential travel. And today, especially after COVID, you know, the trend has completely shifted. Like, you know, we are the first, the entry-level rooms we sell is the villas or the residences. And that's the one which goes first, because people are looking for more space, more experiences, and also looking for experiences in terms of doing something together with generational travel. And the other one we see is the trend, which also resonates well, is the wellness. The health and wellness is becoming the biggest trend now, especially again after COVID as well. So health and wellness, residential, timeshare, you know, and this brings what we call the different verticals into a hotel, being able to offer, including F&B, an experience to the guests. You know, again, F&B is not the same as in the past. You know, like it's all-day dining, and then you do a little bit of lunch, and you do a little bit of dinner. Today, it's all about beach clubs. It's about just that experience, you know, where the young gen, they want to experience it, and including health and wellness, including timeshare, including residential as well. So we see a big shift in that.
John, I'll give you a different one if you're okay, so that we can wrap both things in the next 3 minutes. Let's pick the first one there. What's a realistic payback period of grossing for a hotel project? Before you jump in, my assumption is that the answer is it varies by market, but broadly,
7 years. That's a straight answer, yeah. But also, I mean, there is different, you know, there's a payback, and then it's like, okay, you open it, you sell it, you can double your money almost straight away. It's some instances, I mean, Indonesia in particular, if you build a hotel here, for example, for, you know, a lower end hotel for 100 million, or, you know, $10 million. Once it's open, 3 or 4 months, it's open, it's, all the licenses are in place and stuff like that, you can sell it for $20 million. So there you can double your money in 1.5 year investment. So.
I don't think you need, but yeah, about 17-18%.
Yeah, if you keep the hotel about 7 or 8 years. But at the end of the 7 or 8 years, again, I mean, that hotel could be valued 3 or 4 times the initial investment, yeah, so.
2025, your biggest pain point. Is there one that comes to mind, Raj? Or
I think it's just going to be the volatility that we are seeing across the world today, right? And this is where, to me, one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about is how do we stay nimble to react very quickly to the changing environment? Because today we are enjoying the benefit of this real demand growth and thriving industry. Tomorrow or overnight, you could see a major change, right? And this is what I talked about earlier. Everything that we learned during COVID, we did during COVID, let's not lose those benefits. And that to me would be the key thing to watch out for in 2025.
We've spent the last year telling all our clients about the importance of creating these nest eggs. Now that you're having these believers, part of those funds reinvested wisely, because you're right, our industry is cyclical inherently. We're going to see the next downside stage. We have 1 minute to go, so maybe 15 seconds each. I would like to know, John, what was that one job or role in your long career that you cherish the most and that you think about?
Apart from stripper. I don't know if I can mention that, but probably had a job a few years ago in London when I was about 20 years old. It's kind of like it was I don't know if you guys know a guy called Marco Pierre White. He's a chef. Gordon Ramsay was a sous chef. I was a sous chef at the time. I was there for about a year. It was a restaurant called 𝗙𝗵𝗲. At the time, he was like, Marco was 27 years old. He was like the rising rock star of kind of, you know, he had a lot of stuff going on. There was loads of publicity and stuff like that. But for me, that was kind of like a good time, you know. Maybe worked from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. But fun days, you know. So yeah, it was an enjoyable time for me.
Dylan, what comes to mind?
I think I would say my start of my career with Minor as a CFO. I think that would be the stepping stone.
General manager job. I tell you, for me, the GM job is the best job in Nigeria.
Any particular hotel or?
You know, it doesn't matter which hotel. I think if you've got a great hotel, you're leading the team, you can put in a lot of effort, you can see the results straight away. Yeah.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for taking the time, and audience, thanks.
Some other than them.
Thank you.